Hi everyone, welcome back to XGate Dental. I'm Emmanuel Kadosh, and we are here to discuss new procedures in the field of dentistry. We will provide interesting new cases to exhibit how doctors use our products to solve complicated dental cases. Don't forget to subscribe and follow to stay up to date, and let's get started. Today we're going to show a case of when we want to make a restoration on a single frontal tooth. And in these cases, if we want to make the restoration from the cornea, the only part that we can use is the T-bases. We're going to show different types of parts and where we can use each one. In this case, we use the T-base with an angulated top because you can see already here that the implant is buccally inclined and the screw channel will come right in the middle of the tooth. If you won't change the angulation of the screw channel, it would come right in the middle of the tooth. So in this case, we want to show that we don't always need to change the inclination of the screw channel to the palatal area, but sometimes when we have a level smile line, we can angulate the screw channel not palatally but buccally, so that when the patient smiles, you won't see the screw channel at all. Now, you might be wondering, since we're only making one tooth restoration on the implant, will it hold on a single tooth? The answer is yes, it will hold. But because it's only a tooth and only one implant, typically we don't want to do immediate loading with one done to make the implementation and right away to the restoration. If we're going to make it, we'll want to have a smaller tooth that won't touch anything else, because in all types of movements, in eating, speaking, or chewing gum, you have big forces applied on that single implant. And the highest failure rate in the implant is probably in the immediate loading in the frontal area. In this case, the most important part is when you use a T-base, you want to make sure you have a T-base with a hex, with an anti-rotational element between the implant and the T-base so it won't rotate. If it won't rotate, it won't unscrew. If you have a round T-base for a single implant, it can rotate, and these micro movements can unscrew the screw and the crown will start moving. When the crown does start to move, if the patient bites on the crown in the wrong angulation, you can break the implant or even break the screw channel. You can have a ton of failure, and in some cases, you won't be able to restore the implant. Now, let's talk about how we took impressions. We took impressions with the intraoral scanner. You can see the scan abutments and the positioning of the scan abutments in the mouth. This case is probably the ideal case for the restoration to learn to use the intraoral scanner, because you have all of the teeth, you have only one scan abutment, and you can scan it quite easily. You won't have any interference between the teeth and the scan abutment. Now, in many cases, when you have only one implant and when you have an approximation between the implant and the tooth, you have a problem with the scan abutment because the scan abutment won't fit. It would touch the tooth, and if it touches the tooth, you're not sure that the impressions you're going to be taking are accurate. Maybe you'll have an inclination of the scan abutment, for example, so you take off the scan abutment. These cases aren't good for examples for that. It is a perfect case for the first-time user with intraoral scanners. All the scanners probably can take impressions for a single implant, even the old ones. However, with the new ones, you can just make the restoration using the libraries, and it will be much simpler. And you get to learn how to use the intraoral scanner. If you take impressions on a single implant, you have to take it on implant level because you need to know the orientation of the hex. Everything is based on a single tooth restoration and on anti-rotational elements. You must have an anti-rotational element between the implant and the T-base. In this case, it's a hex. It's an implant with an internal hex, and you have a hex in the T-base. You have later on an anti-rotational element between the T-base and the crown. Now, the T-base is not round all along, so you need to have an anti-rotational element between each of the parts. So if you use scan abutments, you have to use it on an implant level and to have a scan abutment with a hex. If you don't have a hex, you don't know the orientation of the screw channel and the ground will be rotated. Now, in here you can see the provisional crown, the PMMA crown that was made on the T-base. You can see the screw channel, it goes right in the middle of the tooth, and because you have the buccal inclination and the angulation of the tooth is parallel to the implant, the screw channel looks much bigger because the cut of the screw channel is elliptic. You can see in the left simulation that if you cut the screw channel angularly, you'll have an elliptical screw channel. So the surface of the screw channel will be much bigger and you'll have a bigger problem for the screw channel because you need to mask it. You need to close it or it will be seen. And in this case, the screw channel will be right in the middle of the tooth. So here, what we wanted to do is we wanted an angulated screw channel, not palatally, because in this case, you don't have enough space to angulate it more palatally. You can't angulate it right to the most palatal area. In this case, you want to angulate it to the opposite direction, because if you angulate it to the buccal part, this screw channel will go up and the surface cut of the screw channel will be much smaller. So if the patient doesn't have a high smile line, the screw channel won't be seen at all and you won't have an aesthetic problem. With time, maybe you need to change the material that you close the screw channel with, because it can absorb pigments, it can have slight color change. Now, if the patient has a high smile line, you won't see it. So if you have a slight color change, it doesn't really matter, because you would need to raise the lip in order to see it. Now, we get feedback regarding confusion on what part to use in which cases. So let's elaborate. We have different parts for screw retained restoration for different types of cases. So you have the T-base and you have the multi-units. We'll use the multi-units for cases when you have bridges, not for single crowns. We would never use a single crown with multi-units because we don't have anti-rotational elements between the multi-unit and the implant for straight ones. In straight multi-units, as we spoke about before, we need to have an anti-rotational element because the implant and the abutment and between the abutment and the crown. So in straight ones, you see that you have a thread and you don't have any anti-rotational element between the multi-unit, which is the abutment and the implant. So theoretically, the multi-unit can rotate and then unscrew. In the angulated multi-unit, in most of the cases, you have a hex. You have an anti-rotational element between the multi-units, which is the abutment, and between the implant. The multi-unit won't unscrew from the implant, but in the upper part, you don't have any anti-rotational elements, so the crown can unscrew from the multi-unit. From all the multi-units that we know, you can't use the angulated multi-units and you can't use straight multi-units for single crowns. For single crowns, you can only use the T-bases. Now, you have also two different types of T-bases. The T-bases we're talking about when we want to have a single crown is the T-base when we have a hex between, which is the anti-rotational element between the implant and the T-base. And we have some anti-rotational element in the upper part in the connection between the crown and the T-base. You have a variation of the T-base where you don't have a hex, but you have a round surface and can rotate the T-base according to the implant. So these T-bases you can't use with single crowns. These T-bases you would use when you have parallel implants and you want to make a bridge on T-bases. The upper part of the T-base also has a cut. You want the cut in the buccal area because when the implant is buccally inclined, this corner of the T-base will interfere with the design of the crown. You won't be able to move the crown palatally to have it in the arch. You want to have the crown in the arch, so in most cases, you just need to manually remove this part. In this T-base, this part is cut, so you can just place the T-base with the cut part to the buccal area and go forward with the design of the crown. Let's talk about a bit about the differences between V-type and D-type. The D-type is more standard type of multi-unit. You have a standard one and you have an angulated one. That means that you can use the same sleeve and screw for both of them. So you can make a kit that has one type of sleeve and one type of screw. You have the different heights of the straight multi-units and you have different heights of the angulated ones, but you can connect and assemble everything with everything. You can use one type of sleeve and one type of screw in different types of multi-units. Now, in the V-type, it's not the case because for the V-type, you have different types of sleeves. Because the V-type is intended for cases when you don't have enough space or you want to make a metal-based structure, you want the base of the structure to be as small as possible. So you have different types of sleeves. You have small sleeves, you have sleeves from 1.5, 2, 3, 4, and 6 millimeters. You have different screws between the V-type and the D-type. So you have a case that you have enough space, but in the posterior parts, you need to use angulated multi-units, for example. You have two types of screws. It can be a little confusing because the screws look kind of the same. It's kind of hard to know what screws go where, which leads to different types of mistakes. Now, you can use the T-base without the hex for multiple implants, but they need to be parallel because you won't be able to feed the bridge on the top of the multi-units. But it's not always recommended because you don't know the angulation of the implant. Now, you can use the V-type with the D-type, but in this case, you would need to write everything down. You need to know what goes where because it has a lot of different parts and a lot of different parts leads to a lot of confusion and can lead to mistakes where the doctor doesn't know where to go and the bridge doesn't fit and he doesn't really know why. So let's get back to our case. This is the temporary restoration. You can see the crown color is not perfect. It was made from PMMA. The screw channel is closed with a composite material, and you can still see the difference between the screw channel, probably because the picture was taken with a lot of light. In there you have less light. You almost can't see the screw channel, and that's why we move the screw channel not palatally but buccally. We raise the screw channel so even in the highest smile line the patient has, you won't see the screw channel. You can see here that the crown is not in the arch with the implant because the lower teeth interfere just a little bit, but the design of the crown will probably be the same. We want to move the crown a little bit more palatally because we want to mask the difference between these two teeth, and we want to have them on the same level. So that's what we talked about before. The T-base corner is cut, so the cut gives the option to move the crown palatally, which gives a more aesthetic look. Now, because of this option, we can move to the same level as both of the crowns, and here you can see the crown. You almost don't see the screw channel. Now, maybe in a few years, 5 or 10 years, you'll want to change the composite material that closes the screw channel, but in the next few years, it won't be seen. Even when he smiles, you won't be able to see it. You can see that in the final work, we moved the crown because we had the space in the buccal area. We moved the crown more buccally so that both teeth are almost in the same level, even though the original teeth weren't. You don't see it at all. You can see in the reflection that it's not exactly flat, but thank you everyone that joined in to learn some new and interesting information. Make sure to stay tuned for more, and of course, don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow. Thank you, and see you next time.